Clash of Clans just recently turned 13 years old. It was released on August 2nd, 2012 by Supercell, which was actually a small company at the time, but that didn't stop Clash of Clans from gaining momentum fast. While most popular multiplayer mobile games or video games in general tend to die off after a few years, either stopping updates, receiving far fewer, or even shutting down entirely, Clash of Clans has proven to be one of those few games that lasts. Over the last 13 years, it has become one of the biggest mobile games of all time, possibly making more than $10 billion and becoming a global icon that's literally the face of base building games. While Clash has of course had its ups and downs, it has never gone through a stage without a large consistent player base. Now, judging by that, it doesn't look like Clash of Clans is going anywhere anytime soon, and that's probably true, but soon doesn't mean forever. There's definitely a chance that Clash of Clans could eventually lose so many players to the point where it's no longer updated and left to die. Or it could even eventually get shut down entirely. So let's dive into this and go over the 3 major concerns that threaten the life and existence of this game, and answer the question of when will Clash of Clans end? The first concern being the possibility of too many town halls destroying progression. Over a year and a half ago already, Supercell announced that they will now be adding new town hall levels roughly every year instead of the previous every 18-month cycle. And while this initially sounds great, it actually could be really bittersweet. To start, the good part about this is that adding more town halls more frequently gives max players more stuff to do, and it is also good to have fresh content coming to the game more often. I mean, this is why Clash of Clans has lasted for 13 years. It's not a traditional video game with a storyline that you beat and likely never play again. It's a game comparable to Fortnite, Minecraft, that stupid game called Roblox, or even Subway Surfers, where it's designed for you to play forever so it consistently gets updated. So anyway, yes, more stuff coming to the game is obviously good, but on the other hand, while the more frequent release of town halls is balanced and exciting right now, it could likely become an evident problem in the future. If town halls continue to get added every year for years and years to come, it could potentially hurt the game a lot. For example, let's say Supercell keeps up this trend, and 10 years from now there are 10 new town hall levels. That would mean in 10 years there would be 27 or 28 town halls in the game. Now, high-level players and OG players would of course enjoy this, but imagine being a new player first downloading Clash of Clans and realizing that you have to start at Town Hall 1 and upgrade your town hall like 26 times to finally be a maxed out player someday. It would take a ton of years, it could be super daunting, and would honestly lead to a lot of new players deleting the game and deciding not to get into it, which ultimately would lead to the game dying out if it was a bad experience for new players because they would likely just quit. With how slow progression is in a game like Clash of Clans, it just doesn't feel like it would be a good idea for a new player to download the game and realize there are, let's say, 30 town halls. It can even feel this way for some new players starting today. And yes, I know a lot of you are probably thinking that obviously Supercell fixed this by making progression faster with reducing upgrade prices and upgrade times. And yeah, of course they will have to do this, they already have been for a long time. But if they do it too much, it could also potentially lead to a huge problem for Clash of Clans, because Clash was designed to be a slow game. You start at Town Hall 1, begin upgrading, you decide if you want to be a maxer or a rusher, you eventually get to, let's say, Town Hall 9, you learn some attack strategies that are good for your current stage of the game, and check out all of the new troops. You also get to join a clan and just enjoy your journey. It might sound cheesy, but that's it. You're supposed to enjoy your long journey, and it's so rewarding when you finally upgrade your town hall. But now, let's say if you were able to download the game and get to a max town hall 10 within a week, it just wouldn't be right. I mean, yeah, the game would still function and be fun, but that's not the way Clash of Clans has ever been. Nobody wants the whole game to just speed up like that. It wouldn't be near as rewarding, and players would have barely any time to enjoy each of the town hall levels. I'd even argue progression is getting a little too fast already. I saw this guy in YouTube Shorts say he got to a max Town Hall 4 in one sitting, and that's with only 17 town halls in the game. So, to prevent Clash of Clans from losing its classic feel of a long, rewarding grind, and to continue to make it more accessible for new players, after a few years of this more frequent town hall cycle, I think Supercell needs to slow down the release of town halls, and definitely change it back to every 18 months, or maybe even every 2 years or more. And obviously, it would be a problem if they slowed down the release of town halls while not adding new content to the game as often, so instead of releasing most new content like buildings and troops with new town hall levels, to keep the game fresh, they could start adding more stuff to the lower town halls, like for example adding a new troop or spell at Town Hall 12 or 14. And they should of course keep up the trend of frequent medal events and other events, as those also give players more stuff to work on. So yeah, eventually slowing down the release of town halls is definitely a good idea in my opinion. Additionally, I also think Supercell should be spending more time on fixing the game's known problems, rather than pumping out town halls so often. The builder base and clan capital are sitting here with no updates, and the game's UI is just super outdated. Almost as outdated as the game Boom Beach. Jokes aside though, let's not put this lightly. If Supercell isn't smart about this in the future, it could definitely lead to the death of this game. And before we move on, make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments on this issue, and on your way down there, if you like Clash of Clans videos, make sure to click the subscribe button. Anyways, on the same topic of too many town halls leading to problems, this brings us to our second major concern, which is definitely less of a concern that has become evident to not be a huge problem in recent years, but it still definitely needs to be addressed, and that is the age-old concern that Clash of Clans is going to run out of space. Now, I recently did an entire video on this, so we won't do a huge deep dive, but if you know anything about this game, you know that ever since it was released 13 years ago, the developers have been adding new buildings and defenses every once in a while consistently, usually in town hall updates. So it's pretty self-explanatory on why this is a concern. As Supercell keeps adding new buildings over the years, what if one day we just completely run out of space on the map and the game dies? Okay, now I know lots of you are probably thinking right now that the super obvious solution is just to expand the map, but the thing is, that actually happened 10 years ago, way back in 2015, before you were even born. They did it because bases were starting to feel too tight with new buildings such as the Eagle Artillery, rest in peace. But fast forward 10 years to now, the map has not been expanded since. And Supercell does not plan to expand it again. They have said in interviews that it's a last resort solution to the space problem as it makes the game more complicated. I'll list the reasons why on screen. So, the only reason the game hasn't run out of room yet since they expanded the map 10 years ago is because of other solutions that Supercell have come up with to combat the space problem. Like the fact that they removed most of the barracks, that made a lot of space. They've also put buildings on the outside of the map and have done things like turning the builder huts and town hall into the fences, which adds new content to the game without adding or removing any buildings. But by far the most significant solution we have seen is merged defenses. When you merge your cannons and archer towers, it frees up a ton of room as it turns two defenses into one, and it gives players new content. Yeah, that's something I need to work on. So yeah, those are most of the reasons on why we haven't run out of room thus far, but the big question is, what will they do to prevent it in the future? Well, it definitely looks like we don't have to worry as they'll likely continue doing the exact same stuff. I know, big shocker. There are tons of defenses on the map that could be merged, such as mortars, wizard towers, inferno towers, or maybe even loot collectors. And they could also maybe remove some of the collectors, army camps, or storages. Another option is making buildings such as the lab, clan castle, or storages into defenses, as another way to add new content without having to add a ton of new buildings. And other than solutions we have seen already, I saw some comments on my last video that gave ideas for a system where you could stash buildings, making it so players wouldn't be able to have all of their buildings on the map, which would really help prevent Clash of Clans from running out of room. This could be similar to how you can stash decorations in the game right now. Definitely a good idea in my opinion for the developers to combat this problem in the future, and it just shows that there are tons of options. Alright, now that was pretty brief, and it's definitely deeper than that, but I don't want this video to be 6 or 7 hours long, so I had to go over this concern pretty fast. There are also things like the 100 building limit that also play into it, but now that it's more clear that Supercell is very aware of this concern, and have come up with lots of really good solutions over the years, you start to realize that this really isn't much of a problem at all. It's just a valid concern. So honestly, it definitely looks like the space problem will not be the thing that kills Clash of Clans, because Supercell was super smart with handling it. No glaze, but yeah, they did a really good job. And even if Clash of Clans exists way far into the future to the point where everything's merged together or something like that, they could easily just expand the map again, because yes, that's still an option, just the last resort one, or they could just implement something like a stashing building system, as I mentioned earlier. Also, new buildings don't even come out that often anyway. They usually come out with town hall levels, and it's usually just 1 or 2 or even 0. So yeah, guys, Supercell has the game set up where it's never gonna run out of room. It will shut down before that could ever happen. But now that we're moving on, before we answer the question, when will Clash of Clans end and no longer exist, we need to go over the third major concern, which is by far the biggest, and it will be the thing that ultimately leads to the end of Clash. Because regarding the previous concerns, those are things that Supercell can control. They control the space problem, and they control the progression system. They control the whole game. But something they obviously don't control is time itself, and that brings us right to the time problem. We all know that time will eventually lead to the end of every video game. Over time, trends shift, people lose interest, things get outdated, new games come out, and so on. Lots of multiplayer games that were meant to be evergreen like Clash have had this happen, as they are pretty much dead with small player bases because they stopped making enough money where it's worth it for the developers to update them. And there are also lots of games that have been shut down completely. I'm not saying it will happen anytime soon, but years and years into the future, people could definitely lose interest in Clash of Clans. And as we all know, by far the main priority of companies like Supercell, especially Supercell, is money. And if the game stopped making significant money because of player decrease, they would have to stop updating the game, which would leave it dead or almost dead, like a Boom Beach situation, as that game rarely gets updated. And farther into the future, the game will of course one day get shut down and no longer exist. So we need to answer the question, when will this happen? When could Clash die out, and when could it end? Well, starting with the question of when could Clash of Clans die out in popularity and no longer receive updates, but still not be completely shut down, thankfully most of us know that the chances of this game dying anytime soon are very slim. I obviously don't have a time machine to see the future, but I'd say it looks like Clash of Clans will still be popular for another good 10, 20, or possibly maybe even 30 years or more. I genuinely think it will definitely last at least 10 more years, probably more, as it still has a huge player base. It's one of the highest earning games of all time, and Supercell knows how to keep it going. But for the final question of when will Clash of Clans completely end and no longer exist, I obviously have no idea, and Supercell, the makers of the game, don't either. Online/multiplayer games and the internet haven't even been a thing for that long. It could be 5, 10, 40, 80, 99 years. It really is impossible to tell, but what I can say is that by what we know right now, it definitely looks like by the time Clash of Clans shuts down, the wide majority of us won't even care. By then, hopefully we'll be touching real grass instead of Clash of Clans grass. Actually, never mind, scratch that, we'll probably be touching AI-generated hologram grass as we walk out to our flying cars. Bruh. And speaking of touching things, make sure to touch the subscribe button, and thanks for watching to the end.